Hello and welcome to 100% Wheel with Ruby. Today I have Sam Forget on for part 2 of the last podcast. Sorry that it probably ended a little abruptly, but there was just so much gold that we wanted to make sure that you listen through both episodes and take the gold from them and go back to each of them and make notes without getting lost in where about the podcast was. Sam Forget is absolutely amazing with telling people not just what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. So I hope you enjoy this.
And let's say, for example's sake, that things do actually settle down and you do have a relatively chill season of life, but you waited to start your plan until you got to that point. In doing so, you have just reinforced that when things get nuts again, the first thing that's going to happen is your plan is going to become negotiable. So I really like the analogy. I know people often talk about kind of turning the dimmer up and down. Another one that I really like is the ladder analogy of you can think of each rung on a ladder as a yeah, I absolutely love it. So if you think of each rung on a ladder as what is technically more optimal, people make the mistake of saying, well, I'm not going to even get on this ladder unless I can get right to the top. And then the second things get nuts again, I'm literally just going to get off the ladder rather than just saying, okay, things are pretty hectic right now. And this isn't me invalidating people's obstacles because there are certain seasons of life. For example, when you have your move, that's going to be a pretty chaotic time. That's reasonable. But in those seasons, all you do is climb down 1 to 2, maybe 3 rungs on that ladder. You do not jump off the ladder and then wait for the perfect conditions where there is no friction between you and climbing to the top again. So that is something I hammer with my clients all the time. The objective is just to never get off this proverbial ladder. And for specificity's sake, if somebody's in a fat loss phase, the very top of that ladder might be, 4 strength training workouts per week with progressive overload, 10,000 steps, early bedtimes, mostly single ingredient, nutrient dense foods. But guess what? You're not going to be able to do that all the time, no matter how disciplined you are. That's fine. The next rung on the ladder, and I'm kind of making this up on the fly, might be 3 workouts, 8,000 steps, and still mostly single ingredient foods, but maybe something that's a little bit more flexible. And then again, you keep moving down a rung on the ladder, but you refuse to get off it altogether. So the people who succeed the most are the ones who are comfortable starting a plan when they know that for now they're only going to climb about halfway up the ladder. In a couple months from now, they might have to go back down a little bit, and then the cycle repeats.
I absolutely loved that. And that's another thing I like to say is that the goal is to stay in the game the longest. That's truly the game because people leave it or they decide to keep going around the proverbial circling around the block instead of actually driving to your destination is the thing I like to say. It's either you don't leave the driveway because your car's in neutral and you just keep pressing gas, or you are driving, but you're just driving for the sake of driving and going around the block, no actual destination. And to recap the ladder analogy that I used with Sam's is that you're thinking of 2 ladders. One has rungs that are much closer together. The other one has rungs that are much further apart. But you're not coming to this as just your body. You're coming to it with your body, but a bag on the back of you. The bag on the back of you are you remember this one now. They're your burdens, they're the rocks, they're the things that are holding you back from the past, your past beliefs, your past thoughts, your past creatures. I've had so many people not want to start because they've had bad experiences that only left them off worse and they don't know who to trust anymore. So they keep trying their own shit and only getting worse and worse. That's like I have 2 girls that are constantly in my DMs liking all of my shit, but they don't want to start the process the right way because they've been burnt before. And I'm sorry about that because that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. Like these people, and I know you are too, because you put this in, like, that's why you're saying the hard truths, because we see people get burnt over and over again by this stuff. And you want to be able to reduce that baggage over time, even if you're not even making forward progress on the ladder. You might stay stuck in the same place for a while, but you might realize that the weight on your back is starting to lessen because even though you're not moving forward, like physically, mentally, you're losing all of the shit. So now you have a lighter load to carry, and then you can start to actually go up with less friction, less resistance, and voila. But now we actually can lead into the next topic because so many people are not aware of their blind spots, or they feel like everything that they're doing is okay-ish, But just like when you came to Australia, the thing that apparently you liked most was the animal park.
Oh, yeah.
You saw these animals that you've never seen before. But that's the thing. Your reality is your reality based from your perception, and that's all you know. So whatever you know is shaped by your society, is shaped from your environment, because you are not who you think you are, because you are not independent. Regardless of how much you want to think about it, you're interdependent. You depend on your environment and your surroundings to shape so many different things without you realizing that you have these glasses that are tinted with all of those different things put together into the way that you conceive of the world. Where are these blind, like, to come to your point, you were so unaware of this stuff. You had no idea what it's about because you were in your own world. This is like people with their blind spots. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about blind spots, and I guess this kind of works with the whole "it doesn't work for me" sort of thing, because people think that they're trying all the right stuff, but they're not aware of their blind spots.
Be careful bringing up animals, or you might lose an hour of your life if I go down that rabbit hole. Yes, that was probably the bright. Besides meeting some online friends who I'd never met in person, that was definitely the bright spot of my first Australia trip, was seeing all those animals, and I was ecstatic. I know. You should have got over to Brisbane and then Noosa, but yeah, in terms of blind spots, I think a really powerful and effective reframe for a lot of people is going from, to be honest, the relatively stubborn, closed-minded mindset of I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing and nothing seems to be working for me, and instead saying, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't have the results to show for it. So clearly I must be missing something. What exactly might that be? And to bring it back to kind of this writing theme that we've been going with, and say content creation, I can sit here and say, just as an example, I feel like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to grow my audience. There isn't anything I could possibly there isn't anything I could possibly be doing wrong. But if my audience isn't growing, perhaps it's much higher yield for me to say, okay, I feel like I'm doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, but perhaps I'm missing something. Because the second you kind of transition to that second statement / question, that is what allows you to illuminate those blind spots when you go to more of an open mindset of, all right, I got to be missing something. And I'd say the most common example of this is when it comes to extended, I'm putting, for anybody listening, plateau in air quotes here, because I think 99% of plateaus are complete and utter nonsense. They're just the result of what I call leaks in the ship. So leaks in the ship could be everything from, you're simply underestimating a meal out. It could be you had the last few bites off of your kid or partner's plate and you completely forgot about it. It could be misreading do you have Pop-Tarts in Australia? That might be a dumb question.
I think we do. I think
I
don't go down that level.
Yeah, I do. I love Pop-Tarts, but so this may seem like a silly example, but they're packaged with two pastries together in the same package. And if you look at the label, it says 200 calories, and you go, oh, that's not bad, only 200 calories. But the serving is one, not two pastries. So if you eat it the way that everybody in the freaking world eats it, and you have both Pop-Tarts that are in that packaging, you've had double the calories that you saw in that container. So
I've got a worse one. I need to say this one. So
yeah, fire away.
Back in 2017, before like 2015, 2016, 2017, I've never had like a protein treat or a protein snack since 2017, which is why I have to refer to that. There were these cookies. You might be aware of them, the Lenny and Larry cookies.
Yes.
You're aware of those. Okay, so these Lenny and Larry cookies are literally just one cookie. Literally one cookie. They're about that big. And literally, I'm going to keep saying this. One cookie. Not two pastries, one cookie. On the label, it says 250 calories for half a cookie. For half a freaking cookie. So
oh my God.
A cookie, like it's not even split. So for that half cookie, it's 250. For that whole cookie, it's 500 calories. But it's tiny. And it's ridiculous because I'm pretty sure, I can't recall exactly how they used to market it, but I'm pretty sure it was marketing the fact that it said, this cookie has 20 grams of protein. So it's claiming the protein for the whole cookie, but writing the calories for half a cookie.
That is complete and utter nonsense, and a perfect example of this kind of leaking the ship phenomenon that I'm talking about. And people just shoot themselves in the foot so often by not even being open to the idea that they might have blind spots. And again, I'm talking calories specifically. This can come up across the board, but I think the thing that is important to keep in mind is that when coaches like you and I suggest the possibility of a blind spot, this doesn't mean that we're chastising you or judging you or thinking that you're lying or doing anything wrong. I think a lot of people get a little defensive at the idea of that. Instantly guard goes up because they might be doing a lot of things really well and they're working hard, they're making sacrifices. So they are somewhat appalled by the idea that there's no way I'm having 500 calories a day more than I think. And this is where I say, this isn't a you thing. It's not a Ruby thing. It's not a Sam thing. It's not a Sally thing. It's just the world that we live in, whether it is moderately to severely misleading labels, whether it's, your partner cooked a meal and they said they used a food scale, but there's no way in hell they actually did that. 200 calories there, 400 calories there. And then side tangent, the Friday night that you decided to take off from tracking altogether where you had 2,700 calories and brought up your weekly average. If you're not making progress, and you feel like you're doing every single thing that you are supposed to be doing, to steal a line from Mike Dola, science doesn't throw a party and not invite you. The rules apply to all of us. So when it comes to, say, fat loss specifically, if you're not seeing the progress you're after and you feel like you're doing everything you're supposed to, there's a blind spot. And the same goes for any goal. Again, the content creation, audience building example I gave, I can sit here and insist that I'm doing everything I was told when it comes to getting more eyeballs on my content. But if my audience size isn't ticking up, clearly I'm missing something. And maybe this is the most important thing I'll say on this topic. You rid yourself of the opportunity to grow and develop and progress if you're not even open to the idea of that thing. And frankly, most people aren't. And again, it just bites them in the ass.
Yeah, and this is really important because it ties into that whole, this is why people aren't willing to, I actually just sent you the link to I was correct. They label the fiber and they label the protein for the whole cookie, but half of a cookie is all they label the calories on. It's like, you get this much protein, but it's this many. It's sneaky. And like, this is a thing because also, if you relate to this, there are so many mums out there that say they struggle with this, struggle with that, but they're not realizing that they're having the kids' crusts. They're licking the spoons from the kids' food. They're not realizing that as they go to throw the kids' chicken nuggets in the bin, they probably pop one into their mouth and then walk off. Like, there's that you're not realizing. And then there's also the fact that you might not be aware that you could be doing the cardio, adding in the sprint interval trainings, because it's all the rage right now for older women, which I think is absolutely bullocks, because why are we doing sprint interval training? Do you realize that the intensity that you put into a strength training session is like high intensity in itself? Do that and walk outside. Most of the people that say they're doing all the things aren't actually aware of the activity outside. Like, there are so many different factors that go into it. And I guess this kind of highlights why it's so important to find joy in the process and value and the valuable time to work with a coach outside of fat loss. And I guess, I don't know whether you have any other things to add to that on the whole, those who've tried it with other coaches but won't trust another process again. It
Sure.
won't work. Bring that up again.
So actually, before we fully transition to that topic, I want to add one last quick thought on something you just mentioned, which is, whether it's the pizza crust or whether it's finishing the food off your kid's plate or your partner's plate or having the last sip of wine or things like that. And I think this is what I'm about to say, I think is a very under-discussed topic, and I am very much due to write a more in-depth article on it. When you and I say, oh, you might be eating more than you think, or when people say, oh, eating a lot, they could be referring to one of two things, either a calorie total or food volume. And I think that is a very important distinction, because if you and I sit here and say, hey, client, there's a good chance you're just eating more than you think. In my experience, most clients immediately think to food volume, so the amount of stuff on their plate. And they go, yeah, maybe I had the pizza crust or a little bit of wine or, a handful of nuts or trail mix on the way out the door, but I wasn't eating that much. And by food volume standards, the amount of food on their plate, that is absolutely true. What they are not necessarily realizing, again, especially through a fat loss specific lens, is that if we say, hey, you're eating more than you think, it is almost always again, especially when we're talking plateaus, we're talking about calories. And a lot of these low volume foods are very energy dense, meaning they have a lot of calories per bite. So two things can be true. And I think every client who's frustrated with their lack of results need to hear this. It can be true that you're not eating a lot by food volume standards, meaning if we took everything you ate over the course of the day and put it on a plate, it would not look by much. Excuse me, it would not look like much. But at the same time, what is also very likely true is that you're eating more calories specifically than you think. And again, I think that is a very under-discussed topic and a point of frustration for a lot of clients because they are absolutely right very often in thinking that they don't eat that much, but they're thinking about it in that one very specific way. Whereas when we're talking fat loss, which of course is a big theme in this conversation, we need to be thinking not exclusively, but primarily of calories if you're not seeing the progress you want. So a bit of a side tangent there, but I think that is almost like a missing link conversationally for a lot of people that will help them be open to the idea of those aforementioned blind spots.
Yeah, it's not and or. It's, I mean, it's not, yeah, it's not this or that. It's and. Like you can have both existing at once. And I'll let you continue on to the next topic so I don't sidetrack you as well.
No. You're so refresh my memory. You were asking about working with coaches for not just fat loss.
I guess this is kind of tying it back to the start of the conversation because it like the I'm going to tell you the name of the podcast. It's going to be Transforming Bodies, Transforming Lives, Navigating the Realities of Your Fitness Journey. So it's tying it all into the fact that because this is being released in February, you still have the rest of the year ahead of you. We need you to zoom the fuck out and realize that what you're doing now isn't forever, and what you're struggling through now isn't forever. And to tie back to another concept in the book, which I actually think will be really good to elaborate on to tie this all together, is when we're in the moment that is of heightened emotional awareness, or we're not able to emotionally regulate ourselves because there's a lot of disruption going on, the time within that, our time warp of it all, it feels like it's going forever. But then when we look back on it, it actually wasn't all that much time at all. Like it just seems that the days have flown by, which we know that because I wasn't even ready for Christmas. We didn't even celebrate that much Christmassy stuff this year because for all of us, it just like we didn't expect it to come. It came too quick. And it's like, where did that whole year go? Whereas if you think about each moment within your year that felt like it was going on forever, it really didn't. Like that whole time flew. And it's already been like 3 years, 4 years since the first lot of lockdowns. Like it's already been 4 years. Yet in the moment, it felt like it was going forever. And this is
a great example. That's crazy. Yeah.
It's this. I'm actually happy I thought of that one now. It's the changes you're going through in your life. It feels like because you hate where you are so much right now, you just want to get it over and done with. So you're willing to do all the crazy ass bullshit to get you there. But in the end, it's not going to get you there. And then you might feel really uncomfortable. Actually, I'm switching topics for the last conversation because it's important to feed into this, which is diet breaks, but also periods at maintenance, but also you can't diet forever. And maybe you are better off served doing 1 or 2 years building at maintenance, because that last bit of whatever you want to lose is actually muscle that you need to build. And it might feel like it's going on forever because it's a completely different thing. It's change, it's disruption. It's against what we've been told for so many years. But it actually doesn't really last all that long. And like we were saying about the food, you'll realize, like I did, a year into it, actually, I was an absolute asshole to my coach. It took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to get over my bullshit, to actually enjoy the process of being strong again. But in that process, that's because I ended up not being so fixated on the end goal, because I realized, no, I'm finding joy in the process now. I'm not beating myself up for how weak I feel, for missed lifts, for if I didn't do as good as I thought I should, or if I didn't do what I thought I should do. Like I started to enjoy the process more, and I started to embrace this. And it wasn't until that moment, 2 years into being as uncomfortable as hell, that I actually started to live. And that's the important thing. It's like we spend so much of our lives trying to change our bodies, we forget how can we actually create a life that we want to live. That was good. take that.
That was
I'm not
great.
going to
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to add much. I'll do my best. So I think something that's really valuable, that will be valuable for us to address here, is the inevitable resistance from most people when it comes to the idea of actually taking their foot off the gas, not dieting super hard all the damn time. And I'm a numbers guy. So one of the first places that I like to start is actually looking at, say, a 12 to, let's say, for example, that I suggested a 12 to 18 month period where you not only did not try to diet, but you tried to develop muscle and strength. Most people would be appalled and they would not hire us. Or if we were already working together, they would start looking elsewhere for somebody who's going to quote unquote let them diet. But let's use that 18-month example. And I'm pulling up my calculator here. The average lifespan in the US, I'm not sure what it is worldwide, is between 77 and 79, I think. So I'm going to use 78. And I'm going to say 1.5 years off from dieting. Gasp, I said it. Okay. 1.5 divided by 78 is 0.019% of your life. So earlier in this conversation, you asked me kind of about those paradoxes, about those door number threes. And this is where, and again, all of this is to address the inevitable friction. So sometimes that numerical thing alone of saying, hey, this is literally 1% of your life, that will make the rest of your life meaningfully better and higher quality. Sometimes that's enough to move the needle. The other thing that try that again. The other thing that I tend to bring up from there is, hey, you told me you were willing to do whatever it takes to get out of this yo-yo cycle and to finally get to the place that you're after. You said that you're sick and tired of being in the same exact spot, yet you are showing resistance to the very thing, the very solution that will get you out of the position that you are currently in. Can we really be surprised if we keep gravitating back to the same cycles that have left you frustrated for years, if not decades, and then be shocked that we end up in the same exact place? So I usually give a little bit of pushback there of like, hey, I'm not saying this to give you a hard time. I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. But if you do the same damn thing and you're coming to me because you're sick and tired of how things have been going, and I suggest never mind 12 to 18 months. Say I suggest a couple week diet break or a 2-month maintenance phase, and you were just up in arms about that. Well, we can't really expect anything different. We can't expect a different outcome if we're dead set on approaching things in the same way. So yeah, I mean, above all else, I would say to your point, Ruby, zooming out as much as possible. 12 to 18 months for this hypothetical example might feel wildly uncomfortable, but is it not more uncomfortable to stay in the same fucking place yet again for an even longer period of time?
Yeah, and when you zoom out, that's when you're actually able to see how small in context it is. And that like when you zoom out, that's when you can actually see how small in context it truly is. But to bring in some psychological research, it's almost like, you know how they say to surf the urge or to name the emotion. The reason they say that is because you're distancing yourself from what's happening. And that's the same thing with zooming out and realizing, like, literally just state what is going on, state how you're feeling with the impatience, and speak to your situation as though it is separate from you. And you'll start to realize that, hey, this kind of does start to make sense. And this is why this is why coaches are so important. To bring it back to that topic, is that coaches aren't there to tell you exactly what to do. They're there to guide you in the direction that better serves you. But sometimes it's really hard to have a successful journey with a coach if you can't be patient with yourself. Because with all the unlearning, with all of the directing that a good coach should do, because they should be directors, not dictators, there is a lot of learning, there's a lot of failing, there's a lot of learning from that, there's a lot of failing again, there's a lot of pivoting. Like, all of those things are moving forward because it's in the context of your life. And this goes back to the quote unquote, what if it doesn't work for me? What if what doesn't work for you? I don't have a client method. I don't have a blueprint. I have your blueprint. I have your method. I have tools, lots of tools in my toolbox for you, because I put so much money into my tools in my toolbox for you, just like any good coach does. It's just figuring out which ones work for you in this moment right now, because the ones that work for you right now won't be the ones that work for you in the future. The ones that work for you before might not work for you now. Or maybe ones that you've trialed and errored with in the past might actually be the ones you need to use now, but in a better context. Can you try that up? Because I like that analogy, and I know that you can go really good with that because you're good with analogies.
You absolutely crushed that. I'm so glad you used those examples. So, Reddit, here are two very clear-cut action steps if you are on the fence. And this isn't a pitch for either one of us. This is in general. If you're just considering hiring a coach, whether it's for the first time and you're nervous, or whether you have been burned by a coach in the past. To what's the opposite of a red flag? Do they say green flag or beige? What's like the coolest thing now? The green flag is the good thing, right?
Coolest thing is apparently rainbow, but I like green. But pink in my
Okay.
standard because I love pink.
Okay, let's go with pink. So a pink flag, the thing that shows some promise in a potential coach, again, whether it's your first time or whether you have been burned, are the two things that you just mentioned. Number one, that the coach does not have a specific method or system or ideology. And like I'm not going to start firing shots on this podcast, but let's say their Instagram name is literally, and I apologize if this person exists because I have no idea, the keto guy. It is financially fair. All right, I won't hold back. Whoever this is, it is what it is. That person is now going. Let me rephrase that. It would be financially disadvantageous for that person to be open to anything that was not keto, even if that was the thing that made sense for you. So the ultimate pink flag in a coach is somebody who very clearly has no system, no ideology. Now principles, yes, in terms of certain values and certain, based in physiology and legit stuff. But in terms of implementation, that is one of the pinkest flags that you could possibly see in a coach, is that they do not have, like I always tell potential clients, like, oh, tell me about your system. I'm like, I don't really have a SAM system. I kind of take where you're at, gather the information that I need, and then we personalize the implementation side of things based on what makes the most sense for you. The physiology doesn't change, the value of fruits and vegetables and walking more. We just look at how do we make those things more than reach for you. But again, I think something to be very wary of, to flip this conversation for a second, is anybody, again, if their entire brand and marketing message all revolves around one specific system or named diet, you have to keep in mind, I'm not saying these are inherently bad people and they never do anything good, but you have to keep in mind it would be financially disadvantageous for them to be honest with you about certain things. Now that's action step number one. That was a little long-winded, but essentially pink flag, the coach has no specific ideology that they are married to. Pink flag number two that I encourage everybody to look out for, and I'm actually taking this from Cody McBrum, is if the coach is willing to tell you something that makes you question hiring them. So if a potential client is coming to us and saying, hey, I've been trying to eat 1,000 calories since 1972, and just saying, if we work together, I'm still going to want to do that. And you and I say, hey, like, I'm happy to support you in a variety of ways, but that's not something I can comfortably, ethically, responsibly kind of put my stamp of approval on. And if we're saying those things, no, we might, like, frankly, lose the sale, lose the money, lose the investment from the client. That is the ultimate pink flag. If your coach is telling you, or potential coach is saying something to you that they know you probably aren't going to want to hear, and you might even go to a different coach because of it, that is like the best possible thing to look for. So in short, those two things: they don't have an ideology or a brand that revolves around one specific diet or method, and they are willing to tell you things that can quote unquote scare you away at the risk of losing business. Because if they're willing to do that, then they're always going to have your best interest at heart.
I absolutely love that. I want to add one more to
Yeah.
red flag. So I was thinking red light, white light in the end, but I quite like the pink thing because it kind of fits with my theme. But
we're just going with it.
Let's go with black flag. I like black and pink because at least there are two distinct colors. A black flag, as in the death flag, is, because it's the last one I want to add to this so we can tie it up with a bow, because I've kept Sam for quite a while now. But bodybuilding bros and physique athletes and bikini competitor coaches, I've had a couple of clients, actually I've had 3 clients now come to me. 2 of them were treated, well, they kind of promote lifestyle clients as well, but the methods that they went through were ones of bodybuilding competitors, and they were treated like a statistic that just checks in with how adherent were you, what did you weigh, and metrics like that. And if there was no progress, then they'd stay on the same thing. And if they complained about no results, then they'd get their macros cut. And that's all. And the other client, she decided that she wanted to compete. She wasn't tested for, does she have the possibility of disordered eating? Does she have a healthy relationship with food? She wasn't put through the screening questionnaires, which you should always go through before you consider competing, in my books anyway, because it is such a unhealthy sport to, like, there is no healthy way to go about it. And most people end up with some psychological side effect from it. I'm not saying all, I'm saying most. And she wanted to do prep. They put her in prep. She came to me a year later, completely devastated. And mind you, she is in her early 50s, completely devastated, because for the past 3 years, she's been trying to unfuck the fuck that happened to her from competing. And she wasn't like that before when I coached her. She's an older client that came back to me because she wanted to compete, and she went to another coach that she wanted to compete with. And that was the outcome. So she came back to me with issues that she's never had before, now trying to fix it. And because now she's going through perimenopause, she was going through perimenopause, your emotional regulations of where your hormones are, you are in a much less stable state to deal with all of this shit, which is coming around to the whole thing of, you need to think of, how do you want to live the rest of your life? Because that is not a way to live. Like, hating yourself and not wanting to just focus on getting stronger and living your best life, because now you have such a terrible image, a body image, and such a terrible relationship with food that there's nowhere else to go. But I just wanted to add that one in. But every single time we talk, it is always the best of conversations, and I cannot wait to get clips on this. You might have to deal with me kind of adding you to a heap of posts that I put out now.
That's so fun. Can I actually add one last thing on the physique bodybuilding side of things? Because we haven't talked about this. I'm actually training for my first physique competition, and that's a rabbit hole of a conversation. But the main point that I want to emphasize by bringing that up is I have already hired my coach for essentially, proactively, I've already paid in advance for more or less the same duration of this prep for the post-show period, during the time when most people would value a coach dramatically less because the scale is not moving every week. Because I'm thinking ahead, actually taking my own advice here and realizing that, yes, this coach is phenomenal and he's going to help me step on stage and be prepared, and that's wonderful. But the much, much harder part, even when talking about physique bodybuilding stuff, is going to be, how do I not rebound super hard because I've crept so far into unsustainable territory? So again, his name's Justin. As fantastic as he has been and will continue to be, his name's Justin Randall. He's not, he doesn't post a ton of content, but again, he's phenomenal. So shout out to Justin. But he's been excellent thus far. I'm confident he'll continue to be excellent leading up to the show. But the point I want to drive home here is that I have already hired him for an extended period of time after the show, because where 99% of people need the most help, including coaches, including now a physique competitor, is when it comes to the maintenance side of things, not rebounding, not going through the yo-yo cycles. So having his support, his accountability, and the days after are going to be, in my opinion, granted I haven't crossed that finish line yet, more important than the upfront fat loss phase. And again, I want to emphasize, for a meaningful period of time. I see so many clients, and I know we're wrapping up here, so I'll close this in a second, but so many clients are like, yeah, I'll do the diet break, but only for 2 weeks. Come January 1st, I'm like, you've been dieting for say 14 weeks, which, makes sense for some people depending on their pace of progress, how much fat they're trying to lose, etc. And you're telling me that you want to take a 2-week breather. Your time spent dieting should eventually at least match and then eventually exceed, or excuse me, I don't know how I started to phrase that. Your time not dieting, to clarify, I don't know if that's what I just said, should eventually match and then exceed the amount of time you did spend in a diet. That's what I meant to say.
Especially if it's getting that lean. If you got that lean, you need at least double that. And that, I just want to quickly touch on something, because I actually, I don't know if you know this, but I started in this industry as a comp prep coach. That was how I started out. And I did not let anyone join on with me unless they were joining on with me for at least 24 weeks prior to the show. And they weren't allowed to join on with me unless I could lock them in dead set for at least 10 weeks post-show. Because it's not about the fact that you need to come out and eat enough food. It's the mental fuckery that you go through. Because once you get lean, doesn't look the same to you anymore, because as soon as you put on the slightest bit of body fat, or you start eating more, or you start feeling full because you spent so much of your time ravenous, wanting to chew off your fingers, sacrificing every single moment that you would prefer to spend with your family, because there are so many sacrifices that you need to be prepared to make with bodybuilding, like so many sacrifices. You like that mentality, just the slightest bit of being full is going to set you off. You're going to feel fat, because even when you could not pinch my skin, I will say it again, because even though it's an extreme example, even though you could not pinch my skin, I still felt fat. I felt like I was getting too fat and too fluffy, but I clearly was not. And doesn't matter how lean you are, the way that you view yourself, which is what I'm trying to get to, is not reality, which is why it is so important to take this long approach. If, again, navigating the realities of your fitness journey, this is exactly it. You cannot just want to get to the destination without becoming the person and creating the lifestyle and working on your mindset, because you can click your fingers there, but if you don't do that inner work, you're never going to stay there. And I think that wraps it up really nicely. What do you say?
Does. I'm going to add one sentence because I think it's an important point to drive home. Actually, one sentence, though. Or maybe it'll be like 2 or 3. One sentiment.
I won't add anything, I promise.
My time spent dieting start to finish for this prep will likely be around 16 weeks. My game plan post-show is not to diet again for a minimum of 12 to 18 months. And I want to drive that point home. 16 weeks of being in a deficit, 12 to 18 months in the other direction, where the goal is recovering mentally, but also developing strength and muscle before I even consider revisiting a diet or any sort of prep again. So that was way more than one sentence, but I just want to give like a very real time like that. If that sounds outrageous to you, 16 weeks of dieting followed by a year of building, you're the person who likely needs a time ratio like that the most. And I'm going to wrap up there.
Yeah, and inner work. This podcast is absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to get it out. I'm tempted to chop it up in half again, just so people don't skip through any parts, which I might actually end up doing. But I hope you guys listen to either this podcast or these 2 podcasts. I don't know what I'm doing yet with it. I will have to decide. I'm going to sleep on it, just because there is so much gold in this. And every time I get Sam on, we go into a lot of different tangents that merge their way together because of how we bounce off each other. So I want you to go through this, take your notes. Let us both know if there's anything else that you want us to address. If there's any questions that you guys have, share it, tag us in it. You don't have to share it on your stories if you don't want to, but share it with a friend, because the people, like, you always think that you're the only one struggling with what you're struggling through. But I promise you that there are other people going through the same struggles that you are, because it wasn't until I did my group call with the girls over Christmas that they realized that their struggles, they weren't alone in them. Everyone else was struggling with the same shit. And it's like, this is what I've been saying, because I hear the same shit from most of my girls. It's just that they're not aware of it because they don't hear it from other people. And this is the importance of, I guess, having a coach, having a community. And yeah, listen to this, reach out to us, tag us, let us know if we helped you in any way, and please rate the podcast. This is ad-free, promotion-free, except I will say that Coach Sam Forget on Instagram, and I don't think he's going to be doing his podcast again, but he did have an amazing podcast called Transformation Talks. And he does, even though I don't read them, I know that he writes an amazing newsletter, which you can access through his Instagram. I will put that down below. Coach Sam Forget, spelt like forget. So Coach Sam Forget, except add the little Forget, the
French pronunciation. Yep.
The little dashy thingamabob.
No, there's no accent. Just that. I wish it was. It'd be a little bit cooler, but no, just Forget.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Ruby. This is, as always, an absolute pleasure. And I'm looking down at the time now, and it's always shocking to me that over an hour has already gone by, because I feel like we're just getting started. But again, I really do appreciate it, and it's great chatting as always.
Thank you. And I will see, you guys will actually hear me or see me on the next podcast.